Hey, so this is Ramon. Channel is Alpha 4, and welcome back to my channel. That's kind of redundant. Anyway, we are doing Revelation. This is going to be chapter 4. All right, let's go. After this, I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were a trumpet talking with me, which said, "Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. There was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf. And the third beast had a fierce face as a man, and the 4th beast was like a flying eagle. And the 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him. And they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. And when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Okay, so I'm not going to re-record that reading, even though it was a little dry. My throat got a little parched, but I would like to talk about it. So let's go back and look at this again. So the first thing we see is that a door opens, and that he is spirited away, or he is caught up in the spirit. Most interpreters and most commentaries will say that this is a type of ecstasy, that he was caught up in prayer or caught up in the moment, and that he was in a trance. This can be something like what you would see with people who repeat mantras while meditating, that kind of thing. The voice is that of a trumpet, which again kind of signifies some of the previous themes in the Bible, such as the trumpet at Jericho, the idea of something loud and encompassing. You'll also see a lot of throne and chariot imagery. So some people call this throne and chariot prophecy, which is a type of prophecy that exists in Jewish tradition, not so much in Christian tradition. But if you ever think about the chariot of fire or stuff like that. As for the 24 elders, there are several interpretations of that. Some will say that it is the elders of the 12 tribes of Israel, and that it is also the 12 apostles. And that's how you get to 24. The other common commentary is that it is the 24 divisions of the priest in old Hebrew tradition. So, the 24 orders. And they are dressed as priests and kings, and as Christians we are baptized as priests, kings, and prophets. The thunder and lightning is supposed to represent God's presence. So you see a lot of Jewish references in here, in Revelation, which ties into the fact that this is a Johannine writing, not a Pauline. As for the crystal Some people like to go back to the water being split in Exodus. Others will go back to other descriptions of God where there's a type of crystal glass surrounding him. The more common or the more secular or critical idea here is that that is the chaos, the water of chaos that has been brought to heal because of God's presence. The multiple eyes can represent wisdom and knowledge, or it can represent vigilance. As for the beast that are named here, a lot of secular commentary and atheistic commentary will just get all like excited and thrown back. But it's actually not that mysterious. It's the four Gospels. More specifically, it is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, respectively. Each one of them has a animal symbol that's attached to them. So the lion means nobility, which is Mark, and Mark represents courage. The ox represents strength, which is Luke, and Luke represents sacrifice, meaning that the ox is a sacrificial offering at priestly services. The human being represents wisdom, which represents Mark, which represents humility. The eagle represents swiftness, which represents John, which represents the sublime, or in general, just the four Gospels. You can see this in Saint Jerome, Saint Irenaeus, and Saint Bebe, and maybe even Irenaeus. They all allude to this and make commentary on it. And again, you will also see the liturgical aspect of this. So here you have the formula, the doxology, Holy, Holy, Holy Lord, God Almighty, which is, which was, and which is to come. And this is the common doxology that is said at Masses. It's important to note that Mass or church service existed before the Bible. Liturgy came first. So tradition, liturgy, Bible. That's the order of things is how it came, because the Bible was first an oral tradition that was spread orally. So you have the liturgy, which is the Mass, the service, which is going to be based on Jewish service. So Catholic Mass and a Jewish service are supposed to be almost identical, except for the sacrifice part, because their sacrifices stopped when the temple was destroyed. Our sacrifices began when the temple was destroyed. It's kind of a flip-flop thing going on there. But we are not re-sacrificing something, we're simply participating in the one singular sacrifice that is Jesus. So this is Holy, Holy, Holy. That's the Trinity. That's why there's three. And it's being drawn from the Jewish tradition where they would also say Holy, 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 meaning that God, the Lord Almighty, is all-encompassing. And so it's three. So 3 and 7 are holy numbers of completion. I know that's a lot, but it kind of all ties in together, because it's important to remember that Christianity comes from Judaism, not from paganism, from Judaism. Now, I know that there are atheists who say that, oh no, there's all this pagan influence. The pagan influence is actually documented in the early writings of the Bible in Genesis. And the early practitioners of the, if you want to call them, of proto-Israelites or proto-Jews, you can see that in those practices that they're being drawn away from the pagan practices of that time period. But that time period, those are not the developed pagan practices of later time periods. So when the paganism that the Bible's writing against actively, while the Bible's being written and the paganism being practiced, that paganism is very well developed. The paganism that existed when Judaism was first initiated as a religion, that paganism was very underdeveloped, and this develops and this grows and evolves away from that. So it's important to understand the difference between that, because paganism and polytheism versus monotheism and Christianity and Judaism is very different. The connection that you see is so tangential and so in the past that it has nothing to do with the stuff that's going on here in Revelation. I mean, you're talking about the end of the Bible, the last book that was written that would be added into the Bible by most people's estimation, or at least one of the last, and definitely one of the last to be officially canonized. So this is pulling themes from other books, specifically Isaiah and Ezekiel, and in this chapter in particular, it's blending those two books, the references to those two books. And not only is it blending those themes, but then it's taking some references from Daniel to really enlighten the text and give it so much depth. If you actually look, this is a very small section. If you notice, it's super small, but we've been talking now for 11 minutes. I mean, there's a lot here. With another hymn, which is, "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." And again, if you go to a Catholic or an Orthodox Mass, you're going to hear these things said during the Mass because they're liturgical in origin. It's actually quite interesting here that if you're not a Catholic, if you're not a Eastern Orthodox Christian, if you're not a Anglican or a Lutheran, you're just going to miss. You're going to miss so much references and so much basic understanding of what's happening in Revelation. Without the reference of a Mass, without a liturgical reference, you don't know what you're reading. So it makes no sense. If you're in a liturgical setting, it's exactly what you're doing at Mass every time. And it doesn't matter if you're doing the Mass in English or Spanish or Greek or Hebrew or Latin. It's what the Mass looks like. There's an interesting channel. This is kind of a tangent, but not really. There's an interesting channel that James White is promoting lately. And it's an older channel. The videos are kind of out of date, but they have a lot of calls for people from different religions to become true Christians. And they go after traditional Christianity, traditional Catholicism specifically, the Rad Trads. And it's interesting because one of the things they go after is the Latin Mass. Well, the Latin Mass was the vernacular, meaning the common tongue when it was being used. One of the reasons for Vatican II is that the common tongue had changed and they had to update the liturgy. I have the Old Latin Mass, and the Old Latin Mass and the New English Mass are not that different. What's been added in is that the priest now faces you, and that now, not just that it's in English or whatever language it is you're speaking, but, and here's the big thing, is that they added in more Bible readings. But the actual liturgical parts, you're saying roughly the same things. Whether it's the John Chrysostom Mass, which is in Greek, and that's also an original Old Mass, or if it's the original Latin Mass, or the Novus Ordo, or whatever you want to call it, the New Mass, you're getting the same information done. And if you actually go to something like the Book of Common Prayer, and how their liturgical services are done, the guidelines read almost like a Catholic Mass. So you're not having this big division the way that some Protestants view it. Yes, it changed from Latin to English, but before that it was done in Greek, and before it was done in Greek it was done in Hebrew, or it was done in Aramaic, and before it was done in Aramaic it was done in Hebrew. So the language of the Mass can change. What's being said in the language, what's being said in the Mass, the context of the Mass, the substance and purpose of the Mass, that is what doesn't change. That is the worship and adoration of God. And so you have these hymns that go back to the earliest church that get recorded in Revelation and in some parts of Acts, and then we repeat them in Mass. But it originated in liturgy, got recorded in the Bible, and now we repeat it in Mass today. And that connects us to the early church, to the pre-biblical church, the church before the Bible was completed. That's a lot. That's 15 minutes plus 4 minutes of the actual reading. I'll try and edit this down. Peace, like, and subscribe. I hope you guys like this series. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I did the commentary a bit different. I put it at the end of the reading. A lot of people don't like that, I know. Comment down below. Let me know if you appreciated this way of doing it. I can do it again. If not, I'll go back to the way that I've been doing it, which is when I get to a line and I have a thought, I express that opinion or that idea. Peace, like, and subscribe. Talk to you all later. Bye. I know I don't usually do these videos like this, but I had a distraction, so I wasn't able to do it how I normally do it.